on my journey home, and it's basically I talk to myself and I'm thinking, right, what did I do well, what did I not do well? And sometimes I actually record it on my phone, and say, what have I done well, what have I not done so well, so I can listen to see what is made me unhappy about the session. But again, it could be as simple as you've had a bad session, but there's always going to be good things in the session. You just need to make sure that you find the right balance. And I've had sessions where I thought, oh, this is kind of bother this anymore, or I can't bother people, or I can't bother. But again, the coach might work for 10 hours and they've had a long day of work.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Reflective Coach podcast with Coach Luca. In this week's episode, I'm delighted to welcome Laurie McGinley. I know that he's been really waiting for this episode and he's wanted it to come out, and we had such a great time recording this episode with so much information and content in there. Since then, he's continued to expand his coaching horizons, his learning and everything that he's doing on his project fronts, as well as application in terms of training and what he's doing. It's great in the time that we have conversations and by the time they're released, that it just gives a little bit more context to see what we're doing on both ends, as well as the growth of the interviewees and what we can further mention just within the episode. But it's great to see what Laurie has been doing. I know he was very eager to come on the podcast, and I've been very eager to get this episode out there, as I am with all episodes. It was great to welcome my second Scottish coach, and I am very delighted to have these coaches from different areas and different countries from all over the world, and it's great to network and really see what they're doing within every country that's going on, their program, their club, their training, their delivery, their staffing team and so on. It is great because we spoke about so much in this, and one of the key messages that keeps coming out in terms of adaptive and modern day coaching is a type of fitness and fitness levels with youth players. And I know that I created a short clip as an introduction into this episode here today, but what Laurie talks about is that player fitness for youth players, not by doing bleep tests, not by doing lots of running, not by having every obstacle out there, but just by giving them ownership over their program. So in the week that they go away, they're healthy, they have a maintained diet and balance over that, that they're doing their own fitness whilst at home, whether they're doing their own running, etc. But he will give them a program, so therefore by the time they come into training, it's going to mostly be ball work, and it will help impact that fitness in a positive manner, but it won't be that heavy focus or going, we're doing fitness today. It will naturally come out in the coaching objectives that are there, or the session structure that will increase the objectives that come out, or impacts and outcomes. Now, with that fitness, it will maintain as a natural period over time, and it will allow players obviously to become happier, healthier, fitter, and will just enjoy their training sessions without an overload on fitness or fitness components or a dedication on that, especially at a young age. As we say of the external factors which Laurie mentions about coaching delivery and, that high quality performance, which I'm going to mention later on, for the players, as well as these external factors, they may have been in school all day, uni, college, they may have been learning, they may have been at home where they, in terms of half term, they may have a lot going on externally. So by the time they come to football, they just want to kick the ball around with their friends, they want to score some goals, they want to have that enjoyment. But by them coming 6 or 7 o'clock at night, especially in the winter, do they really want to see lots of fitness components or lots of fitness objectives out there? No, they don't in reality. They just want to kick a ball. So therefore we talked about youth coaching and that transitions, as Laurie has a wider experience of working from youth players to senior level. Laurie talks about maximising time to learn. So, for example, when he got up early in the early hours of the morning to be with his little nipper, he spent the time reading a book or listening to a podcast, and it's just maximising those little hours, those little minutes, and having that consistent application, which allows you just to have those key takeaways, allow you to keep building on that. So, whilst we might struggle for time, or whilst we may say, I don't have the time to do this, or you've got a lot going on, or you're just struggling for that consistency, which you may have had that time to do things previously. Therefore, you've had a family, you may have children, you may be on holiday, you may have had a job change, coach may no longer be your full-time job, you may be a grassroots, you may be a parent, you may be a volunteer, you may have an array of different things. But it's just that little time. Could you spend 10 minutes a night reading 10 pages, or are you going to maximise on 10 pages every night and make sure that's consistent? Over a course of a week, that's 70 pages read. In 2 weeks, that's 140, and that's 408 over a month. So realistically, you could do a book a month just by doing 10 pages a night. And doing that just before bed is a really good application, really good consistency, and then you can have that real recap the next morning or the next day, building upon that. So maximising time to learn was a key outcome, and I loved Laurie's commitment to this. He consistently talked about learning, consistently spoke about other coaches, especially on a professional game, mentioned books and what his highlights were, and he really relates very close to Phil Sargent. Very similar mindsets, very similar in their approaches, very similar in terms of their books, their application, their learning, their consistency. So it's great to have someone so alike and in a complete different country to someone who's doing something down in the south, for example. So it just shows this great coaching community, the great coaches I'm having on, the continuous learning. And whilst we talk about coaching community, Laurie really interlinks and talks about having a coaching community whereby we can support each other, help each other learn, and really move forward. You know, that's another key message which a lot of the other interviewees who have come on the podcast have spoken about. It's not just being out there on our own individuality. It's not just about going, I'm doing this as a coach and I'm doing that, and trying to build on our own individual successes. How can we do it as a community? How can we learn? How can we support each other? At the end of the day, the players are there to play, they're there to learn, they're there to grow, they're there to try and attain opportunities. So while supporting each other in that, we're going to increase the game to higher levels and really increase this learning, these outcomes, and this support. Laurie then talks about reflecting. What has made me unhappy about the session? So that's just a little question, as sometimes there may be that little niggle, and again it relates to those external circumstances. So you know, he's had maybe a bad day at work, or it's been a long day, or he's worked a number of hours, or there may just be something on his mind, and therefore his session delivery hasn't been as consistent or as high quality as he may have liked. And we can all say this as coaches. If we say to ourselves, right, I've had 100 sessions this year, every one of them has been high quality, then you're lying to yourself. Because realistically here, Laurie has been very honest, and that's what we want as coaches, especially on a podcast, whereby we can really ask those questions. What has made me unhappy? And sometimes it might be something as simple as, do you know what, I've had just a long day. But Laurie's importance here is not to take it out on the kids, not to take it out on the players, but to try and put on the best session, no matter what the external circumstances are affecting us, and then to come home, diagnose those issues, move on, and then try and reapply yourself in more of a positive, energetic manner the week forward. We're all going to have low days, we're all going to have ups and downs, and it will impact our sessions, it will impact our work. That's natural. But just maintain that high quality, even if for an hour, and then come home, relax, try and digest yourself, try and let it out. Laurie then talked about ensuring that commitment for high quality sessions through those difficult times, consistent application, i.e. reading every day, or that learning, or the opportunity to do so. It's not a to-do list, but it's more of a today list. That's a quote which he's pinched from someone else, but whilst Laurie said it, I'm going to quote him on that. So it's such a fantastic list and way of approaching that in terms of, you know, that consistency and application, which I said previously and consistently throughout. And whilst we have a today list, you know, we might have 10 to do things, but if we just go, right, I'm going to try and achieve 3 today, a 3 tomorrow, we're going to consistently approach that. We're going to tackle it. Yes, the list might ever grow, but it gives us an opportunity just to try and tackle things in a scheduled, operational, calm and relaxed manner. We're going to get stressed. We're humans. There's so many external factors. But just relax and know, right, maybe I'm going to tackle 3 today, and maybe that's all I'm going to achieve. But that is success in itself rather than achieving nothing. So just think about how you could do things consistently, that application, how you could utilize your time, and what you can tackle in a today list. Accountability and taking control of the controllables. Again, another consistent and key message that keeps cropping up. And I'm glad that the coaches and interviewees keep saying this on the podcast, so therefore these messages can hammer home. Then we talked about aspirations and asking those key questions. Not yet, but about that mentality and how we can maintain that. I'm not going to give too much away in terms of that, because Laurie asked some key questions and key reflections. And this is what the Reflective Coach podcast is all about. This was a fantastic episode with Laurie of Laurie McGinley Coaching, and he is part of the Curve Mindset podcast as well. So it's great to hear what he's been doing, what he's doing in terms of interviewing others, how he's learning, and how he's applying that to himself. Again, it's all about that coaching community, so I'm happy to support him and happy to give him that promotion. You can find the podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Anchor, Podcast Addict, LinkedIn, and Twitter. You can also find it on TikTok as well. There may be some new platforms which we're approaching upon. Drop us a like, drop us a follow, drop us a subscribe, leave a comment. It is really appreciated. So make sure you drop those follows and those subscribes. I hope you enjoy this episode. Continue to apply this and write the notes down in your journal. This is the Reflective Coach Podcast with Coach Luca. Thank you for listening from me today. It is at TRC Podcast _ on Twitter. It is Anthony _ Luca96 on Twitter as well. You can find us across our socials. We're sponsored by Humble Gifts. Thank you for listening and enjoy this episode with Laurie. Thank you from me.
Sorry, it's
That's right, it's no problems.
I know the feeling. I'm supposed to be a 30-minute chat with someone and come into an hour and 20. It was like, and then the thing is, you go with a brain. It's like I was speaking to one of the technical directors of a company, and he was just having a chat, and then we just generally do the usual. You have a chat, then it turns into a presentation, which turns into oh, that's interesting. Oh, I didn't know that information. Well, it's all fun again, but yeah, it's all good.
That's right. That's the life we live in it, on the edge and adapting as we go along.
Yeah, if you hear the background noise, I've got nearly a 4-month-old next door, right? So my wife's like this. She's be quiet. You know what I mean? So
yeah, no, that's completely fine. All good. What's it like having a young born when you're doing so much coaching and that then?
It's actually it makes life really, really adaptable. That's the thing. So for example, I think I'm up. I'm usually the late night and the early morning. So I was up about 6 this morning. Instead of moaning about it, I thought I'll just put some earphones in, feed him, and then I'll listen to him. He's about half an hour, usually, give or take. So I've got half a podcast listened to already, and then the other half I just listen to him, get my breakfast and all that. I'm like, but it's the hardest thing in the world, adapting to things. I think it's just you're trying to work out a schedule, and the schedule just kind of doesn't really fit. So I make sure I discuss it in the podcast, but I try 2 or 3 things done that are important, and then it's trying to develop more of a way of thinking of how much can I get out of things, you know. So, but it's hard work. But I know I'm happy to chat. I'm happy to explore things. I don't get to do a lot of. I get to talk a lot, but I don't get to do a lot of this type of thing. So I'm happy to share my story, what's happened, and how things life is, as they say. How you adapt to life, new life.
No, I love it, and that's the thing in it, because obviously you've got your own podcast and what you're doing, and putting out there and sharing those experiences. And when you are on the end like I am, you don't get to share what we have. So when we've been invited on and we're able to actually talk about what we do and get into the coaching outside, because sometimes there's that reflection, listening to others. It's nice to get out our own and sometimes just have that stopgap to listen to. But it's great that we could come on, because obviously we've been connected for a period of time now, and you've got so much going on in terms of the coaching you do and setting up your own company, which is really exciting, and how you get out to school, set up sessions and deliver different programs and try to make that obviously sustainable but viable as well as profitable, and obviously alongside having a wife, having a home, having the young born, and making that work, because starting a business isn't easy, coaching isn't easy, but when you put 2 of those things together plus everything else that's going on, it can be like the world is stacked against you at times.
No, the other, as I said, she warned me. She said, make it an hour, alright, maximum an hour, so I'm happy. But as I said, I was in a podcast with the British Coaches Network about 2-3 months ago. I think I went for about an hour and 15, and I think at the first question I chatted to it, he was like, tell us about yourself. I'm like, where do I start? So, as I said, you hear my voice always sounds like this, alright, and the people are like, oh no, he's lost his voice, it's great, he doesn't shout anymore. And then one of them was like, why is he shouting still? Why is he still shouting that? You should be in that right wing. So this is they all have a laugh, because when my voice goes, they know when I can still have another voice in me, which just says, need to get there. So yeah, it's all fucking game. But no, just let me know when you're ready to start. I'm happy to go. Yeah, no,
ready whenever you are. So
yeah, you'll have to I'll be already, which is sometimes a little bit of sugar just helps a little bit. So.
No, that's all good. I had my sugar rush before I got on, because getting in and having that long day, I was like, I need something to keep going now. And I had one last week at a call, and it was like, come 8:30, I was literally flagging. I was like, how much longer? Because I was gone at that point.
Right. Is this going to be in video and audio, or is it both?
But yeah, both.
Oh, okay, cool. Right, I might just put my t-shirt on because it's a lot of it. I've got the heating on. It's like we're in the. Don't want to go halfway. Also, don't judge my pink t-shirt. Alright, it's just because the only thing's not been sicked on today. So that's
No judgment at all. I was working with some students yesterday, and one of them was telling, he was in our behaviour room, and he was saying it's because he was abusing a member of staff about wearing a pink shirt. And I had my jacket on, and by the time I took him down to the behaviour room, took my jacket off, I had a pink shirt. So at that point, his face literally went red, and he didn't know what to say then at that point. But rate the pink shirt. So
I'm comfortable. You know, it doesn't really bother. I just wear a t-shirt. Doesn't bother me. That's the thing. I'm more I love I think I prefer to. One is I love the coaching t-shirts and shorts.
Yeah.
It was pissing down with rain. So I've been told as you get older, you know, like I'm 32 in about 5 days, just make sure you put a jacket on. You know,
Yeah.
don't come home back with a cold and then when a cold, I get a little one. Oh, Jesus, it's something else. But yeah, okay, ready when you are.
Fab, love it. So that's a great starting point. There is 32. So how long have you been coaching now, and why coaching?
Well, I've been coaching for about 16 years now, give or take. I think the best part was probably when I was at school, in high school. I was always active, I loved PE, but I think it really goes back when I was really young. I loved playing football, I loved being active, I loved just being part of a team. And then when I was 10 years old, I took very ill. I had encephalitis, which is meningitis in the brain. I was told I wasn't going to talk pretty much. I told I died 3 times in the operating theatre, so I wasn't really I shouldn't really be talking. But it was always this kind of thing of you can survive, but it depends on how much you have that mindset of people around you. But can you take one small piece of it, one step forward, one step forward, one step forward, because life we always want to go 2-3 steps ahead, but we don't miss the first step. So yeah, there was that, and then I got a letter through from one of the Scottish Football Association, and it was a guy called Stuart Sharp, who's a disability officer, and he basically said, "Do you want to play with Scotland?" And it was actually the Child Brain Injury Trust who got in contact with them, because they basically said if there's anyone who's a brain injury, cerebral palsy, or the stroke, you qualify. So I thought, okay, and after about 4 weeks of talking, I thought, oh, do you know what, I'll just turn to training. But I loved it. I still played football, but I was a very good sprinter though. That was my release. I loved to run, and I thought, alright, went to the first session, and I loved it. Then I get called up to the kind of second session, which was in the Larks, for kind of residential. Then about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, I was in Finland, in minus 20 degrees, making my debut against these, all these amazing players I'm playing against. But I had no idea what I was kind of getting into. You see, when you're young, at 18, 19, you're thinking brilliant, but then you get hit by a Finnish person, a Finnish guy, and absolutely hits you. You know you're going to hit a game, and it's professional in the day. So I was continued my story. Continued for 6-7 years playing in World Cups, European Championships. But I've always loved coaching. When I was playing, I loved to dictate. Oh, you do this, do that, and then I think I said the best thing I always think of is how can I make myself better to make everyone else around me that little bit better. And through education, through webinars, I try to do as much as I can. Go to London on an overnight bus. So I can go to an event. Like coffee was invented, so that was the best thing in the world. But I think coaching, I love you see a smile on a wee child's face to when you work with the adults who you've worked on a plan all week, and they get this this small little thing that you work on. But coaching is not it's all about, can you help, can you develop, can you educate, also can you just sometimes be a better person, so therefore you can become the environment becomes more positive. But from a young age, I love coaching. I love playing, love coaching. But now I think I take it very serious. I'm a pure 6:30 in the morning, podcast, watching things to But again, it's one of them things. If that's the live, every day. We just need to get ourselves better every day.
Absolutely, I love that, and it's an incredible journey and an incredible personal story as well. And on that journey, you've done so much in that time, which is fascinating to see what you've done. And starting out at 16, it can be quite a tough way to start out in coaching. I know I started at 16, and 10 years on, I'm still into it, getting a lot, out of it, enjoying it. And it's that positive environment which is really important. And as we have more experiences as we go through coaching, such as grassroots, academy, private, etc., we can enjoy one more than the other, and it's making sure that we're enjoying it as well. Because if we become too bogged down in it, then we stop enjoying it. Then our sessions aren't great. We're not getting the best of ourselves. We're not getting the best of our players, etc. And I found that whilst I went into the academy, and after a period of time, a lot of high intensity, a lot of performance, a lot of based around progression of players and where they should be, and it really took away from when I was working with grassroots at that time, where I had a grassroots family as such. So over that time, have you, obviously coaching shapes us, but over that time, have you had that sort of period where you have been unhappy with coaching and you had to really find yourself again?
Well, depends on unhappiness, that's the thing, because, excuse me, I think you can be unhappy after a session like tonight or tomorrow, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of them things, but I think I had once when I was I think it was one of them, you start to go, see when you work every single day in the coaching world, every single day you're under pressure, and then you just go, I can't be bothered with this anymore, and you start to see this more and more, burnout, but also, I shouldn't be burning out 21, 22, 23, that should never be happening, but I just went like this, I can't be bothered with this, and it lasted 2 weeks. I enjoyed the 2 weeks off, like, beside me I've got about 450 books, I love reading, but I think the biggest thing is how you make the session. Are you prepped for the session? I always see when I'm working with every age group, if it's a school or the age group I'm working with right now, it needs to be prepped, because the one thing is something will go wrong, as in you might have half a pitch, but then you've only got a third of a pitch, but you can't do what you want to do, so you have to adapt. But that'll make, if you're not prepped or organised, but also people around you, you have to ask for help around you, I think that's the biggest thing. If we need to surround ourselves with yes people and no people who help you, but people who actually challenge you. Because I've been coaching, as I said, for a long time. I've worked in primary schools, secondary schools, working with boys, girls, adults, but the biggest thing is I think it was Alex Ferguson said there was never such thing as a perfect session. If you get a good session, you're happy. But I'm one of those people who goes, I'm quite a sad person when it comes to this. I reflect on my journey home, and it's basically, I talk to myself and I'm thinking, right, what did I do well, do I not do well? And sometimes I actually record it on my phone, and say, what have I done well, what have I not done so well, so I can listen to see what is maybe unhappy about the session. But again, it could be as simple as you've had a bad session, but there's always going to be good things in the session. You just need to make sure that you find the right balance. And I've had sessions where I've went, oh, this is can't be bothered with this anymore, or I can't bother people, or I can't bother. But again, that person, the coach might work for 10 hours and they've had a long day of work. For example, I always say, this is my thing, I work with young children and young people. That's the only hour or 2 hours they might get a week of exercise or football. So you need to sacrifice yourself a little bit. After you might have a 10-hour day, but see that 1 hour at 6 o'clock, then that's the only hour they might get. So have the energy. I think it was I loved it. Was it Diego Simeone? Energy excites, charisma inspires. So you need to inspire a person. And I always think if you are energized and you're happy, the players will find that. Again, that takes time, that takes the environment, that takes what you know. But you need to get the players buy-in very quickly, and then they will challenge you, which is great, because I like being challenged as a coach, also as a person. But I think if you're unhappy, you need to talk to people around you, talk to people. If you want to take the week off, take the week off, take the day off, but always think about yourself first, of what am I, if I go into a session, if I go 50%, the players will only get 50% out of me. So sometimes you need to go to the assistant coach or someone, can you help, can you do a session, here's the session, can you help with it and I'll assist. I think that's something I would always try and do.
I love that, and there's so many key points there and things that I want to pull off on and explore, which is great. And that's something that I always say is we have to look at ourselves first. We have to put ourselves at that centerpiece. And a lot of people are like, "Our kids always come first, and we have to do this, we have to do that." And I flip it on this head, like, "Well, no, we have to put ourselves first for precisely that reason, because we have to perform and get to those levels. We have to make sure that we're maximising the opportunity. We have to maximise getting to where we need to get to really give the best opportunities to these young people." And the players that we work with. The more that you learn, the more that we learn. In that academy environment, going into exploring sessions, going into watching others, really helps them when we take it back to our own sessions, rather than going, "Oh, this is my team. This is the way I've done things. This is what my coaching pathway have said." And you find things over the years, but if you're not willing to go out and explore and learn, like you say, you're really taking away from how you can really progress these players. And one thing there, when you say ask for help, I think that's such a key point. I've always been a head coach, lead coach, a manager, and I've always felt, the eyes of the parents on me, the player expectations, and therefore I felt the accountability and pressure to deliver on the expectations of that, and making sure that the outcomes are there. But it's only by luck I've had really good assistant coaches that they've allowed me to go, right, ask for help, get the parents involved, get them doing this, and utilising just the wider stakeholder community a little bit more, especially asking parents for that help. And that's something that I've really had to sort of let go, because I felt that accountability, whereas then I've had the controllables, which have been something that I've really felt that I've had to be hands-on with and not let go. But I think asking for help is such an important point, putting ourselves first, really progressing, and there's so much in that which is really fascinating, and many takeaways which I believe are so important. And it's great that you've come out and said it, rather than, "Oh, this is what we've agreed to." It's just great to hear another coach sort of argue that and say how important that is.
No, I totally agree. But the thing about it is, I've got a lot of mentors. You know what I mean? I've got a lot of people who, like for example, today I spent an hour and a half with someone on game principles and values, and it was really interesting. But then this morning had a meeting, had a chat with another coach on something completely different. But as you said, it's about. I think it was just like I think it's like I think it's 86,400 seconds in a day, but you can make what you want of that. Like I love listening to podcasts. I love the high performance podcast, but it's the one thing they talk about is, can you it's about your to-do list. But it was like Gerald Jones, he said to me, he says, "It's not a to-do list, it's a to-day list. What are you going to do today?" And I was listening to Brendan Rodgers, and he talked about you could have a list of 30 things. You're not going to get them all done, so get 3 things that you are going to make the most time out of. For example, if you need to run a session, but you are struggling with time, make sure that you get the first part, the second part right, and then if you need to take that time to go away to do something, then that's fine. But I think the biggest thing is having the accountability, control the controllables, which you struggle with, but also you talk about people around you, the support network. Sometimes you want to be on your own just to learn. Like, if you're a head coach, you need to obviously be in charge. You need to be the face. You need to do things. But I think it was Gordon. He said on an interview that there was he knows his stuff, but the people below him know more than him. So why would you go and employ someone you don't know anything about? For example, analysts, or strength and conditioning, or every head coach has an idea of a majority of the roles that people have. Okay, but I would never go to be an expert in strength and conditioning. That's not my background. I'm going to ask someone, and I'm going to find the best person I know that's going to help me. Because therefore, if I know that person is trustworthy, I can go and get that information and bring them in. So therefore, you have that kind of trust. But the biggest thing is you need to trust. I love the expression "trust the process." Trust yourself to make the right judgment, and don't go against your principles. Things will go wrong. For example, I'll tell you, like one of the teams that I used to work for, I'm working in, like at the start of it was quite hard because there's a lot of trying to deal with parents, players, environments, and it's all been very much just trying to work out. And I was always told, oh, go in fast, go in change everything. I just went in. See, the first 2 weeks, I just basically went, training starts at 6:30, be there for 6:30. Training starts at 7, be there for between 6:30 and 7. Okay, boots on, ready to go, and I have the place set up. But the thing is, see when you've got, if you don't have anything set up, the players don't really trust you. If you get things set up, looks professional, that extra 5% comes, and then therefore you actually have, the biggest thing now is they have that trust, they have the values, but also you need to go, things will go wrong in the session. You might not be the best session, might not be the best players, might not, but by God, you need to work them hard, alright? You work them hard until they actually know, oh, this is actually standards. Again, this all comes at the start of the season. Putting an email out or putting something out that sets the standards, sets the bout, sets this. I don't work with rules. It's your standards. That's what it is. You have to have your standards. I think that's the best thing to do. Or you need to have it so everyone agrees. So therefore, if someone doesn't meet the standard, i.e. the late for training, then you can just say, sorry, you've done this, but you need to actually. But again, it's all about accountability. Who wants it more? Who wants to be the best coach? Who wants to be the best example? Another one is what's wrong with being the best under 14s coach in the world? Everyone wants to go in the first team, which I want to be a first team manager. Okay, I've worked with I've worked with children, I've worked with youth, I've worked with people with disabilities, girls, boys, adults. But the thing is, you build yourself a reputation of I've got a skill set of this, and this. So therefore, I can actually go, you see if it's under 14s or under 12s, if that's the philosophy of the club or the methodology, then I can go to the under 12s coach and say, by the way, I've actually done a session here before, let's see if we can build it, from a first team to the 12s, so therefore maybe a little rotation, or 2v2s or 3v3s, so therefore you improve the knowledge of the kids, but also the biggest thing is, see if the head coach or the manager is here and he works with the youth academy or the academy, players will respect that, but coaches, the 12s and 14 will ask questions. Oh, what am I doing right? Instead of what am I doing wrong? Because people always go, we're a very negative country. Like, oh, what did you do wrong? Oh, what did you do right? You know what I mean? You've done it all right. Well, instead of saying but, say yet. You know what I mean? We've not done it yet. We'll be there yet. You know what I mean? We're not going to win the league yet, but we will win. But it's all about having that mentality, and I think the best one's Arsenal. I'm not an Arsenal fan. I'm not. I think everyone knows who my allegiance is with Chelsea. All right, I should not tell you that. All right, but that's a different story. But trust the process. Trust him. You know what I mean? And he might not be the best manager in the world, but you need to trust him. And he is a very, very good manager. But you need to learn that there's going to be people who are just going to take time. And that's the biggest thing, is time. You need to give people time. Also, you need to give them trust. And you also need to learn how they work and how you work. So I kind of rambled on there, but I thought it was the kind of thing you're looking for.
No, I absolutely love that, and there's so much again within that which I could pull off and say, and it's that process which is really important, and those buy-ins which you say, and that trust which is absolutely key in terms of that. And I think it's that mentality and terminology that we use as well is yet, and we're progressing in this process, and we're doing this, and because especially when we're working with stakeholders, we might have really good players who are very good technically, naturally. We might have players who excel them when we are coaching them technically. We have them parents with the expectations, because they might pay subs, they might pay to be part of that team. They have the expectation that their child might be the next Lionel Messi, and in terms of that, they want things there and then and very quickly, but it doesn't always happen that way, and along the period we might lose players and parents whereby they want to go to the team because they seem to be winning the most, or that they seem to have more technical players on that team, so their child might excel by being there. So we will naturally lose players in terms of that process that we go through as well, but because of that, they're not ready to explore and have that guided discovery learning, or have those experiences which might shape their child a little bit more by going through the losses and what they're learning, rather than constantly winning as a young kid and then trying to progress academy and then this and that. But I think it's all about that terminology, which is really important, creating that mentality of we're getting there, yes, process, yet, and certainly creating that off from the offset, which is really important to embed. And that's something that we tried to instill when we found a grassroots club and moved away. We created a Wolfpack philosophy, so it's all about everyone together, a family, that close close-knit environment. We're always there for each other, and it was sort of to create those buy-ins and to show that there was something much more than just looking at the results, just a team that you're playing, just more than the progression. And even if a player does progress, they've always got this team to come back to, but we're always going to be family united in that sense, and it really paid off. So it is that process which is really important, but showing the wider picture to support players along their own journey, which I think is really important.
No, I totally agree. But it's about the, excuse my voice is croaky, but it still works.
Good.
No, I don't worry. It never goes. That's what my wife says. He's never going to stop. But I think the thing is, you need to. It's about caring for the person first and the player second. Alright. So examples are always the ones who start the season, might leave and they come back because they might not have the right mentality, or they might not have the. But the biggest thing is we need to look at, like, I guarantee this is really something, but I see the coaches, some coaches, and there might be some, but they just want to get the training done and then in, out. Why about you go half an hour or 20 minutes beforehand? Hi, how's your day? Or you know that, like, I know the majority of my players were in exams, i.e. one that I called 3-4 weeks ago. Oh, how did your exam go? And I know exactly what exam they all had because they told me and I listened to them. That's why I've got 2 ears and one mouth. This is a really simple thing. Also, guarantee there's another thing of like body language. So you get interested in listening to the young people. This is 17s level, right? So this is going to go. They might go professional, or an adult. They might get reserve team football. But I always say to the players, if you don't make it at one club, you might make it another club, or you might not. You might be a coach, or be an analyst. Or the best thing you do is you need to learn that. See if it's 7 o'clock and you're going to be late, you need to let people know. You know what I mean? It's like anything else, but you need to learn life skills, and this is the thing. We struggle sometimes with this kind of way of thinking, but we need to learn. Can we push them? How much can we push the players? But how much can we push ourselves? That's the thing. Like how many hours of CBD do we do? How much? Like for example, I play a 3-4-2-1. All right, but the reason why I love that is because I've got 2 wing backs. I've got 4 wing backs. I can play 2, then sometimes change it out. Struggle. I play 3 at the back, and it's the reason why I love Johan Cruyff. Love him. If you've got 1 defender, you've got 4 defenders, the 3 midfielders. You can have 1 more defender into the midfield. So then it's a 3-4-3, a version of a 3-4-2-1. The reason why I love the box too is because you can sit with a back 3, 2 holding players. Then you've got 2 10s. You've got if the ball goes to the right hand side, the ball's into the winger. The left wing back stepped in, so it's basically a 3-2-5 when you attack, or a 3-2-1-4. You want to balance things out. But the biggest thing about it is that I did that. I've been working with a back 3 for a long, long time. 3-5-2, 3-4-2-1, 3-4-3. But the biggest thing is the players get it because you work in. It's not about. I love patterns to an extent. 3 or 4 maximum, but they get the idea. It's repetition. You need to repeat things. I've got a player who didn't get the point of if the ball's on the left hand side, I step in because the number 10's played the right wing. So therefore, it's like, oh, but he's in my spot and all that. But the players started to question me, and it was great. They said, that player, so for example, let's say we played that 3-4-2-1, and we got that, and the right winger was stepping into the half space, the wing. Therefore, the players can't actually get the width as much, so therefore they're complaining, why is he in the pitch? Because he's 5 yards in, he should be 10 yards out. So I thought I put something at training, I thought, this isn't working because he's not getting it. And I was showing him video, I was showing him tactics, I was showing, everything. And I was like, I can't get this. So I thought, you know what? Why don't you go back post? Alright, your job is to get back post if you're that left wing, and see the number 10, them 2 will go in, and then the 2 holding players will just step in advance and we'll go down a flat, basically a 5-5 if you want to call it. And then they started to get it, you know what I mean? Which is great. But then on the Thursday, that was the Monday, I made a training session out of it because I wanted to show them, but then they felt more comfortable. That's because they challenged you as a coach, but they didn't do it in a way that's going to make you feel bad. It was more of a, we want to win, but we want to know is smaller. Like for example, back foot, front foot. Taking the ball in a back three. If you play the ball out to the right centre back, ball goes into the centre midfielder, goes into the left centre back. The centre midfielder drops in to the left centre back. The left centre back's played the ball out to the left wing back. The left centre back stepped into centre midfield. So therefore, it's rotations. Okay, but they know this because that's repetition of passing patterns, being comfortable on the ball, but also communication, non-verbal and verbal, and that's the thing you work. But if you can work with the person first to get their confidence up, to get them, for example, we give them all gym programs, we give them everything to them. So therefore, I don't feel guilty as a coach. So I've done everything I can, and there's no excuses. You know what I mean? You can't have if you've got an excuse, it has to be a very good one before you start to complain. And that's the thing. As coaches, a lot of us make excuses. Oh, I don't have enough time. Well, there's again, I said at the start, there's 86,400 seconds in the day. Key up it. See if you've got, I've got a 4-month-old, alright? It's very hard sometimes. But like this morning, he was up at 6. He was fed, and I listened to a wee podcast for half an hour. Up at 6:30, and I thought, we go back to bed. I'm going to watch Eddie Jones in a webinar for an hour. Well, I'm going to do this. I'd done 2 hours of work before I even started work. You know what I mean? I go for a walk. I love this. But the biggest thing is we all have excuses. You know what I mean? And everyone has it. And it's all about, can we turn the excuses into kind of 5 minutes, kind of 5 more minutes to do something, 5 minutes to do a bit of exercise, 5 minutes to do a bit of reading, chapters of books. Yeah, it was a I know I rambled on, but it was something that was really interesting. It was Jamie Alderton, he talked about it. So yeah, I'll ask you a question and see if you've got 36 books and you needed to read them in a year, would you struggle with that?
Of course you would. I think that's something that I was looking into recently. Is like I've got all these books up here ready to read, but have I actually got through them in a year? I think I got through 2 maximum last year, and it's like, oh, tomorrow, and it's something that I started to look into. Is like, right, read 1 page a day, and then increase it to 2 pages, then 3 pages. Then you create a framework in terms of how you're going to complete more books in a year, and that's something which I know, which I've had to take more control of, is to look into, and something that I'm trying to develop. But as you said, that's a really important point that you make there.
Yeah, because if you go, let's say it's 32 books, what if you got, so every book's worth probably between, say, 7 to 10 chapters, you read 1 chapter a day, which is going to be 10-15 minutes, you do that in a week, that's let's say you get 2-3 books a month, things that by 12, you get 36 books, even if you get 30 books, but what we do is we look at the long term instead of breaking things down, really, it's the old cliche, 1 game at a time. I say to my players, Monday, training session. Tuesday, your training session where you're going to do your strength and conditioning, where you want to do your thing. Wednesday, you can give them some kind of goal. You can't look at Thursday. You need to look at tomorrow. So, because you never know what's going to happen, and that's the biggest thing. I love reading because it's kind of helps me things, but it's just one of them things of. You need to be disciplined, that's the thing. I know that everyone has a busy life and it's hard, alright, but you could either spend an hour on YouTube, watching nonsense, or you could watch an hour on YouTube watching you don't even have to watch a coaching session, keep something like a documentary, you know what I mean, an hour's documentary, and it's exactly the same, and this is what probably bothers me the most, is the fact is, I'm on my phone a lot, I'm always looking, oh, that's interesting, oh, I like that, oh, who can I... Like for example, I spent about an hour today, and I wrote about 20 names down, and I just pinged a message to 20 people today, and I get 5 responses. You know what I mean? What? I didn't expect it. And then one was like, "Oh, I'll talk to you next week." "Oh, I'm happy to talk to you." And then that's all. Then I emailed 3 or 4 clubs. 2 are like, "Oh, do you want to come and talk to us next week in Zoom?" No worries. But the thing is, if you don't ask, you don't get. You gotta know. If you don't ask, you gotta know. That's the thing. So you're either going to get a yes or a no. And it's a 50-50. And I'd rather be the half full person and say, you know what, and always have a plan, always ask, can I have 10 minutes of your time? 10 minutes, people are happy to give 10 minutes, but if you've got a good question, but then you want to, you always say, oh, is there any chance I could give you ask you one more question? They might say no, 95% will say yes, and that 10 minutes turns into half an hour, which sometimes turns into an hour. I remember I was talking to someone for 15 minutes, and I said, I'm really sorry I've wasted 15 minutes of your time. Said, well, if I wanted to hang the phone up, I would have hanged up 15 minutes ago. And I was like, touche. fair harsh, but the way you talk to them. But these are the people you need to talk to. Engage with people, because they never know. As I always say, people are always watching what you're doing in football and in life. And if you're good at what you do, I always remember. Sorry, I kind of thing about it. It was Lee Scott at Total Football Analysis, and he wrote that book, Winning the Premier League, I think it was, or Mastering the Premier League, and he said that Pep Guardiola actually read his book under an alias and a Twitter kind of thing. Like, well, people are watching, so you need to just kind of do what you're doing and trust yourself and trust the people around you to do the job, and that's the most important thing. Work with the person, develop the person, so therefore the person believes in you, so therefore you can believe in them more, so therefore you can push them that they know what to do.
Again, so many key points, and I really love that. I love that you say trust the person, and that's something that I was thinking about on the way home today after something, a day in work and having some reflection time, and something that I made a request of this morning. And the kind of response that I had was in terms of a lack of people skill, a lack of communication, a lack of an open perspective in terms of understanding that need and being hands-on to deal with it there and then. And it really knocked me off for the rest of the day then, because it was just something that could have been simply fixed, but it was that reluctance to fix it because it was this person, I know best and it is my way, and it really wasn't that. And it's not about it resembles that point of he's not able then to trust his staff, trust their decisions, even though we on the ground floor have that more experience in terms of working with our young people, knowing what's best for them, knowing how we're going to shape that program and provision, and really support the bigger picture in terms of that short term, but a short term and long term. It's about what we can do here now for the short term every day with these young people, which is going to really support them long term when they are looking at GCSEs or leaving school, that they're going to thrive now rather than the little things which we're not tweaking and making the most of. But I love what you say about short term, because that's something I was watching on the Chelsea women's documentary, and they were looking at terms of blocks, and I know that is something that we look at in sessions and stuff, but it's not about going, right, we got the next 6 games here. It's like, right, we got 1 game, this is how our next week is going to look in terms of these sessions, how we frame it, and then we build on the next week rather than going, right, this game, and then this game. Yes, obviously you have to look at player succession in terms of if one's got an injury or they have to rotate, etc. But it is taking that in terms of the squad and how they deliver that in terms of a week block and building on that, which is really important to get those objectives out there, which is what you say, that priority of objectives, as you said earlier on.
Oh yeah. I actually watched the Chelsea documentary. I think I played tonight actually in the Champions League. It's like how do you prioritise what's important? Mm-hmm. I mean, for example, the biggest thing is, can you, I've got 3 non-negotiables and where I have to go. I'm pretty much fluent in Spanish because I've done it for nearly 1,100 days now. All right, which is I can understand it. I can present it. I can understand French. I can understand a little bit of Portuguese. But the biggest thing is I love pushing myself. Like my uncle who speaks, who's 76, 77. I always remember, and this is a thing I was stunned by this. So he can speak 26 languages, which is incredible. But he was at a round table, and there must have been about 10 people with 10 different nationalities, and he spoke every single one of them in a conversation. It was about an hour, and I was just watching. I said to my dad, is this normal? I said, no, he's a bit weird, but this is the thing. But the knowledge he has. But then it was always, I think it was Harry Watland, he talked about it in the Coaching Badges podcast, and he says, my dream is to, obviously watch the Rangers. He said, I want to see if I can coach in a second language. It'll make my life easier. I always say to people always ask, what's your ambition? You know what I mean? And I'm very ambitious, but I always say, I love Real Madrid. I love the Cruyff thing. I love the Real Madrid kind of one. People are like, why'd you like them? I said, because they're the most successful team in the world by far. But I went to the Bernabeu. Oh my God, it's amazing. All right, and then I went to Atletico Madrid. The stadium. It was brilliant too because the atmosphere and all that. I love that kind of thing. But just one of them things. What can you, for example, you have 40 quid to work with, all right, and you spend it on rubbish? Why can't you spend it on like I watched a webinar. It was for my birthday yesterday. The recruitment and scouting webinar for training ground guru. 40 quid, 7 hours. I was like, wow, 40 quid for 7 hours, brilliant. You know what I mean? You get to know about, learned about cricket, we learned about the recruitment, we learned about this. I was like, wow, this is, but 7 hours is a long time, you know what I mean? But what are you going to do? What if you could do a lot, or you could just say, do you know what, I'm going to cancel that day, you know, or that morning. But again, invest in yourself, that's the biggest thing. And I think time, money, also your health. You know what I mean? Like, I love walking. I'm not the best at the gym. Alright, I'm probably have to cancel my membership soon because I've not been in a couple of weeks. But I love the fact is, I mean, mentally, very quite strong. I can deal with a lot of things. Physically, I'm okay. But the biggest thing is, I see the emotional side. That's never good. I was criticised for being too emotional on the side pitch. I just shout. I shout in a way that's not aggressive. Sometimes I'm motivational if I need you to do this. But the biggest thing is sometimes you need to deflect as a coach to when you're playing. You need to kind of speak to, maybe get the assistant to call to the ref in a way that's you're not. You need to respect everyone around you. I totally get that. Sometimes you have to deflect things from your performance, so therefore players get angry at someone else instead of you, or you need to do it. That's the thing. But that's experience. That's work. Like Matt, I can change a game when I need to, but sometimes it might not be the personnel. It might be, ref, I need to work with you for 2 seconds, alright, because I don't agree with something you're doing. But that's when your assistant has to come in and deal with the players, or vice versa. But again, that's probably a Jose Mourinho kind of dark trick, you know what I mean? But again, these are all things you see, all things you work on. But you need to learn that sometimes in football, you're going to have bad games and good games, but you need to just adapt to what's going on in front of you. And that's the biggest thing. Football is a very simple sport, but we love to overcomplicate it with communication, trigger words, so they just make it simple. Alright, and I do a lot of that myself. I just tell the players, there's the ball, I'm going to pass it the front foot, we know what's happening, to know that it's repetition, so therefore when we repeat it, the brain, the muscle memory works, but then you can push them, you can push players in a way that's going to make them better, and if it fails, it fails, you know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with failure. You know, you can redefine the failure as a good thing or a bad thing. It's how you work with a player, and you can't fail. You might fail as a coach, but you can't. They can't. How do I put this? They need to just try and develop themselves, and if they want to help, you need to be as open as you can. That's good relationships. That's how you build trust with the players. Can you help them become a better person? Is this the kind of theory behind a lot of it? But you need to make them a better player too. No matter the person's there, but the player's there too. So it's, if you look at the person, the player will get better themselves. You know what I mean? But you need to develop the player, because that person might just not want to be developed. The player wants to develop, so you have to work out how to get that boy or girl, or the male or female, ticking, get them going. And it might just be as simple as a tweaking information, or it may be a way of showing them some information. But again, it's all about technology sometimes to help.
Again, so many important points there, and I think when you work with a player and helping them develop themselves, that's really important. And interlinks with what you said earlier is about when they question you and having that feedback and opportunity, which you want them to learn, you want them to go in. Because I've taken over a team this year, and it's very much me giving them a lot of information a lot of time, because not in that position where they've never learned it before, and sometimes just going back and doing the things that they have that they're doing badly, or trying to go in and make those interventions so they can learn. But when they're coming back with questions, I'm like, I want you to question me, I want you to ask me things, I want to give you as much as you want to take away from it. I want to help you lot grow, and I think that's really important. And again, what makes them tick, and how it can find them in that position. So the other week we made a tactical tweak. We had to play our left winger, left wing back. because he could deal with a player who was causing us a problem down the right flank. And he said he really enjoyed playing there because it allowed him to play defensively, which is somewhere that he was trained to play previously. It was a shame for us because we lost that really good attacking element, but he came away from it going, oh, do you know what, I actually really enjoy playing that position. And it is a risk when you put an attacking player defensively, because sometimes they have a moan and a groan about doing it because they want to be up front and have that opportunity to try and score and get the assists, etc., but to be playing forward. But when they go backwards, it can be a little bit difficult for them.
Well, you're the etiquette, so I'm not me, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah, but what makes them tick is really important because, as I said, when you take an attacking player and put them defensively, they can become frustrated because they're not in a position that they're more familiar or would like to play. But that relates again to what you said, is just having that time to talk to players, because if we're organising setup, which I'm big on in terms of my non-negotiables, in terms of my own sessions and how I set them up, once if we're set up in that opportunity, then it gives us that time to really talk to the player and get through to them. And if we can find out what makes them tick and integrate that into a session or integrate that in terms of a game scenario, I think they're really important considerations for us in terms of how we can approach those practice and those environments.
Yeah, I think it's just about organisation. You need to organise yourself, and also I think it's about time too. As I said to you, the biggest thing is, if you're rushing about and you're running into training, and do you know what happens is the best thing to do is always have someone, like an assistant, get things set up. But always, see if it's a warm up. You know what I mean? As simple as that. If you look at an hour, you know what I mean? Just a fun warm up until the head coach comes up or that. Again, you just have to adapt. It's all about, can you be as professional as you can? And that's the biggest thing, I think. But again, it's all about how much do you want to be the best version of yourself.
Absolutely, and it's about finding the best version of ourselves and what works for us, which is really important. And creating that kind of way, that way of that, what looks like for us in terms of that. And it's about making those sessions enjoyable for the young people, because as you say, it's that time is really important. I'm quite big on time, because as we might have a player when they're under 7s and then suddenly we're under 16s and those years have passed, we can never go back to under 7s, under 8s, under 9s again, and those years have passed and they have progressed. But it's about maximising that opportunity before they get to 16, going, oh, I wish I could play that again, or why didn't we do this when we were 7s or under 8s, because that's time that they could never really give back to them. And it's really important that we maximise the opportunity of being with them at that time, so that they do look back with pride, they do look back with enjoyment, that they're enjoying it here and now in a moment as well. Because as you said earlier, taking too many steps and going, right, I've got 5 steps, and then you suddenly miss one because you haven't taken it one by one. Again, it is such important points, and it all interlinks towards this big picture, which essentially you are puzzling together, and it's really good how every point is interlinking and that transition between every point.
No, totally agree, but that's the thing. We really struggle. I think everyone wants to be in a rush to get to the first team, but what's the, like you said, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, can we do that? How much can we, like, I see a lot of things, like, I always get a ball out every single session, like even the warm up, for younger ones, even older ones. Again, it's a bit of activation, a bit of competition. You need to be realistic to what age you're working with. But you could do some ball mastery, you could do some tag, you could do some just excitement. But invasion games, you need to get them. How do they fall? How do you move? How do you do this? And that's the thing. No, it sounds terrible, but you don't need to run laps at 7 years old, 8 years old. Just get them playing. If you get an hour and you spend half an hour of fitness, you're in the wrong sport. Go to the athletics club. That's a bit harsh. Alright, but it's just the fact is, what if you've only got 1 hour a week? Get a ball. You know what I mean? Get them playing. And also get them excited about the football. Get them excited about something, that they actually, I loved football when I was younger. I loved it. But because I was part of something. But I've got a wee guy, right, and I've got a wee ball, so he kicks it, so I'm trying to get him for 4 months. But the biggest thing is, if you fall in love with the game, you'll have it grip for life. That's the thing. But you need to as coaches, we need to help other coaches out. Because we can't start going like laps and fitness. I do a lot of fitness work with the ball. You know, like we do a lot of possessional games, possession stuff, but we don't do it. I expect, see the players, they 2 nights a week with me. See the rest of the time, I expect them to do their own fitness because we give them a program. I've seen players leaned out. I've got players that are running fast. I've got players that are, I've just benched this, or deadlifted that, or I've ran this speed. You know, I've done this time. Brilliant. That gives me pride. I'm looking around and I'm thinking, oh God, I've got these, like, I'm on a third of a pitch and I've got these 7-year-olds or 8-year-olds and they're running up and down like a bleed test. And I thought, bleed test for what? You know what I mean? They're chasing shadows. You know what I mean? They're chasing themselves. You know, and this is where it really frustrates me as a coach. And I'm not, like, I only know 1-2% of the game, alright, like everyone else. But I've learned, see when I was younger, you know, this is where I help coaches out. I'm quite good. I think I'm good at what I do. Alright, I think I'm pretty good. That's no ego. I just years and years of experience. But like for example, when I was younger, it was one goalie, 20 people on a queue, and your number. If you're 18, you get the ball, you shot, and you shouldn't. And I said to the guy, why don't you split this group? So you get 20. Okay, you get 2 goals, you get 2 goalies, you get 2 coaches. One coach up there, one coach up there. Okay, 2 goalies, that gives you 18. Okay, split the group into 3-3-3, 3-3-3. Then you've got 3 groups of 3. But see the number 9, they'll be waiting for about 20 seconds, man. You go ping, ping, ping. Next one, ping, ping. Then you can do 1v1s, 2v1s, 2v2s, 3v3s, and it works and it gets them excited. How many times you touch the ball? Many more times than standing in the queue waiting. But again, that is because we don't do enough to help people. You know what I mean? Like, I said that to someone and I told them, well, keep off, you know, and I was like, alright, I'm just trying to help you. And the parents are like, why didn't you take the session on? Because I'm not working with him. Alright, I work my own team. Come and watch what we're doing. And again, it's nothing against other teams or this is in the 16 years. I used to do that when I was younger, the coach. Then I had a mentor and I said, what are you doing? You know what I mean? I'm like, oh right. I thought that's because I was taught that way. And then I hate the expression, we've always done it this way. You can do it this way, brilliant. You can change it and adapt it to what's new. Like I listened to something today, it was really interesting. See if you're stuck doing the same things, the game's going to evolve, you're going to just be stuck behind. For example, I always try to find new trends. Like I like to see what's happening in the women's game, the men's game, the futsal, so I can pick up a person's brain in 10 minutes. And I think that's the biggest thing is, if you're stuck doing the same thing, but there's a difference between the same thing and repetition. You need to repeat things at a high standard, and then you can push it. And that's the biggest thing I always invest in your time, invest in the people, but most importantly, make sure that you have the session. And do you know what? You can have it chaotic. It doesn't matter. Kids like chaos, but you need to have it in a way it's going to progress the kid to make them. Oh, what did you do? How was your session? Great. I touched the ball 100 times, 200 times, 300 times. Oh, really? Because last week you only touched it twice in the half hour. Oh, you was running. Oh, right. Well, athletics club's down the road. Harsh, maybe truthful, but again, this is the thing about life.
I love that. I love a chaotic session. They're always fun and energetic and full of life then. And this, again, so many key points in there to certainly take away. And it's just been jam-packed full of things. And I've just been literally noting things as we've been talking throughout. And, you know, and it's just scraping at the surface, really. And really getting into it because, you know, I had a full set of questions ready for you. But I love the fact that we can delve off in a conversation. And it's been so great to hear those different insights which you're having, how you think about the game and how you're continuously learning and taking things things away, which I really love in terms of that, especially around having a business, having a young child, having a wife, and making things work, which I think is really important in terms of again looking at the personnel sales and putting that first, because whilst you're putting in that time this morning, such as listening to that half-hour podcast, and there's something that you could apply then when you're working with your players, and it's just making those seconds count. And I think that's a big life lesson in terms of that mindset that I try to get across to people, and they don't seem to have that concept, and suddenly they're like, well into their 30s, and they're like, oh right, now I want to go and do this, because it's great that they've had that time to then reflect and get on there, but it's like, oh well, you could have done that 10 years ago and you could be doing this now at that point. And I think time is so important. I think it's key in terms of those life lessons that we give to young people when we pay off our experiences. And to be 32 in your position, I say you're in a very, very good position, and it's great to see what you're doing week in, week out. But I know that we've been chatting for an hour and we could go for many, many more, but I know you're under a strict time frame from the other half, which is always something to keep a consideration on. But honestly, it's been such a pleasure, and whenever you're ready to go again, we can do it again.
As I say, it's a happy wife, happy life. That's what it is. I'm happy to go again. I know I kind of talk a lot, but I've got a lot to.
Yeah.
It's I'm so passionate in the game, but it's so much. I think it's just, as you say, you scratch the surface, but. If you ask me questions, I'll probably answer them, and then I'll just try. I tear off. That's one thing I'm really bad at. But it's one thing I love talking about the game, but also just love speaking to people. But thanks again, Luke, for taking the time to talk to me.
Absolute pleasure, and any time for you, Laurie. But absolute, honestly, pleasure, mate. And definitely look at some other times in the next coming weeks when you're free.
No, great. Okay. No, if you just give me a message, I'll sort it.
Yeah, smash in.
Okay. Just like so we can I can promote it and start to put it together. All right.
Yep, smash in.